All right. Hello and welcome to Application Jumpstart. Jump. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray. As we are welcoming in people, they will be trickling in 55, 58, 66. Let us know where you are watching from and give us a little yes if you are applying this next cycle, 2023. To start medical school in 2024, also known as the 2024 medical school application cycle. A lot of people confuse that. They're like, I'm applying the 23 cycle. I'm like, yeah, you're a little late for that. That's the one that happened already. Yes. Sydney, yes. New Orleans, yes. Sydney, hello. Wyatt in Minnesota wins first place for commenting first. Hello,
Danny
Turf from
Bloomington,
Michigan.
Indiana. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. You go.
I was just excited to see a fellow Midwesterner. Hi, Bloomington, Indiana.
Have a New
There's
Yorker,
a Seattle in there.
and there's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
New Yorker. Any Gators in the house? I always got to make
There's
sure.
a Florida.
All right, but is it the right Florida? Got to make
Yeah.
sure. Make sure. We are the medical school headquarters advising team, the MAPT advising team, whatever you want to call us. Just don't call us Shirley. That is how we roll here. Courtney's like, such a dad joke.
They
Anyway,
wouldn't understand that
I know.
reference.
I know. I don't even know that reference. I just know it's a thing.
Oh, it's from Airplane.
Yeah, we're
Oh.
old.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not like you were born when that movie came out, Courtney. So someone showed it to you in your childhood.
Yes.
Well, you're older than
I was
me.
0 when that movie came out, so someone showed it to me in my childhood too.
What's it? It's from Airplane.
Airplane?
Oh, I picked the wrong week to stop smoking crack.
Same,
Yes,
same
I know.
movie.
I know all the references. I don't know if I've ever actually watched the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta watch it through once.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll make it maybe I'll stay up late tonight so I can make it happen. All right. Rachel Grubbs. Hello and welcome, co-founder of MAPT and MCAT test prep extraordinaire. Haven't said that word in a while. Gotta get that word going. Welcome. Verinia Granum,
Hello.
former assistant dean of pre-health and STEM advising at Hofstra University. See, I can do it without the lower thirds. Rockin' Anna rolling.
Yeah.
And Courtney Lewis, former director of admissions at a medical school in the Southwest, as we like to say. Yes. All right. And then potentially Dr. Scott Wright joining us. He's had some health issues the last couple days, so he may or may not be attending. He may be hopped up on painkillers because
We're sending him
he's
healing
hurting.
vibes.
sending healing vibes. Yes. But we can continue without him. We have just a few slides to show you, just an overview of what we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to be, tonight is kind of a am I ready to apply type night. Next week, we're going to be doing personal statement and activity description reviews and talking about kind of what those look like. And then the following week, secondary essay reviews. The following week, interview prep, where we're bringing you on doing interview prep with you. We're going to skip a week for the holiday week, and then we'll be back that first week of January doing some open Q&A with the goal after these 5 sessions, 5 weeks here, that you will have a really, really, really good head start, hence the name Jumpstart, on the application cycle coming up. That's our goal. That's our plan. And we're going to live up to it. So, Rachel, you want to share screen? Look at a couple slides there.
This is going to be exciting. I'm excited.
I'm super excited.
Get all this information out ahead of time, get everybody going on the right track, not having to backtrack, reducing stress. And it feels so proactive and I like it.
Yep.
Fun.
Yep. Rachel, you're muted. And watch your hair on your microphone
Courtney,
too.
Yeah, my hair is probably on the mic. Courtney, I know you're a goth kid at heart, but I also feel like you're a little bit of a team cheerleader for us. You know, you're always there to be like, you know, what's really cool. And I'm like, you're right.
It's because I had to crush so many dreams.
Yes.
My dreams made to dreams crush ratio made me so sad, you know, because if people could just have some information. I ran into so many qualified people that would be wonderful physicians that just didn't know what they didn't know. And you get kind of tied where you can only share so much. So it's, I don't know, it's still fresh and new for me to be able to just kind of share this aspect of it and try to help on this front end before you get the no, just because, you know, didn't have any guidance there. So yeah, but I am a little bit of a cheerleader. It's the pink hair right now, I think.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you've seen, we're here at Application Jumpstart.
Yep. Well, I want to go back. I wanted to ask a question about the logo to see if maybe we need to change it. Everyone, do you guys know what is clipped onto the A and the T there? What is that? All right, now you can keep going. Jumper cables. All right, good.
We're missing the cables. We're missing the cables.
I know. It was a quick and dirty. I tried to do some cables. It didn't look very good, so I didn't do it. All right,
but they got it. Something for a car, someone said.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you don't know what they are, don't try to use them on your own.
No.
What do you do with these?
Should I touch one? All right, sorry.
An AED.
It could be.
Clear.
I guess.
There are smiling faces in duplicate. There's Dr. Wright, who's here in honor, even though he's nursing his illness. Let's see. Ryan quickly went through this, but so yeah, this is a 5-week series. So tonight, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of all over the place. Questions aren't going to be off limits or anything like that. But tonight, we're mostly focusing on timeline, whether or not you're ready to apply. Next week, personal statement. We'll be doing live essay review, friends. So if you guys have rough drafts, you can start to bring them. Secondary essays, interviews, and then in January, we'll wrap it up with, you know, a Q&A and rehashing all the topics.
Yep.
And then tonight.
And this 5-week kind of application jumpstart is basically a mini application academy, which we'll be talking about as well throughout the night and later on as well. So if you like this format, if you're interested in learning more, Application Academy is what you're looking for. So let's rock and roll.
Oh.
back to it.
Come back.
All right.
So for tonight, we talked about the fact that we're going to talk about whether or not you're ready. Let's sort of dig down into what that means. So we'll briefly talk about kind of some basic principles of applying. We'll talk about recommended timelines. And then we're going to get into the heart of it, which is, are you ready to apply? And yeah, we'll talk some theory. But in my experience, one of the things I really like about pre-meds is we could talk theory till kingdom come and you still want to know, but what about me? So we're going to get into it. Hopefully a lot of you guys use Mappd. If you don't, go create a free Mappd account right now. And people are going to be brave and they're going to show their Mappd accounts, and we're going to help them figure out if this is the year to apply or if they need to do things to go to next year. And then, of course, lots and lots of questions from you, answers from us, of course.
That's the goal.
All right. So basic principles of application. I'll turn off screen share because there's not a lot of slides to see here. This is mostly us just sharing with the audience. Ryan, I've heard you say before that you think of the application as an open book exam.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. The open book exam, you know exactly what you need to be doing to apply to medical school, right? You can go up, I don't know at this point in the timeline, you can still go open an old application for 2023 that opened here in 2022. But you can go and play with these applications. You can go and watch any application renovation videos, see what I talk about in terms of looking at an application, looking at the activities to say, hey, did you get clinical experience? Do you have shadowing? Do you have research if you want that? Do you have any leadership? Do you have volunteer, like community volunteer experience? Do you understand why you want to be a doctor? Have you been exploring that and reflecting on that so you can write a cohesive personal statement? Do you understand what it takes to build a school list that truly reflects who you are and where you want to be, and understand the schools that are going to make you successful. I have a whole book on the medical school application process that really, right, you can open that book, and that's the open book test. And the biggest part of this open book test is making sure that you're applying early enough that most medical schools are rolling admissions. They're looking at applications as they come in. They're inviting people as those applications come in and they're being reviewed. And then they're turning around and offering seats as the application cycle goes through. And the later that you apply, the lower your chances are typically getting for those rolling admission schools. So can you do all of this stuff while also taking classes, studying for the MCAT, doing the activities that you're writing about, and putting in your application? There's a lot to handle and juggle. We understand that. But hopefully just understanding this process and what goes into it will help you be much more successful than a lot of students applying with zero clue. So that is the open book test of the process. Courtney, what are your thoughts on the kind of basics of the application?
Like you said, there's a lot that you have to track and do ahead of time, even before you're thinking about applying. So by the time you are ready to open that application, it's going to be a lot to enter. And it's one of those things that if you put things off to the last minute, maybe you've been doing all of the experiences, but you haven't really prepped any of the content and polished that up ahead of time. When you open the application, you're going to be surprised how much time it's going to take to write out, little experience essays, document everything, have somebody proofread it and things like that, and put your strongest foot forward, because you don't want to leave anything out just because you're rushing or you're feeling behind, and so you're just going to fling it in because you don't know what med schools are looking for. Maybe they do want to see evidence of promotion or leadership. Maybe they do want to see, more community volunteerism that you actually did. You just didn't document it. You didn't want to take the time, or things weren't as professional looking as they could have been. You just kind of turned it around really quickly. So doing it this way will take off some of the stress. It'll give you time to kind of look over certain items multiple times, put eyes on it multiple times, and that's really helpful in being able to draft stuff out. So there's going to be a lot. That's kind of my thought. There's just a lot that you have to do kind of before and then right before the application opens to be ready to go.
Yeah. A student just asked for a referral code for Mappd. I just posted one that will give you 90 days free of Mappd Pro. The Pro level right now includes chat access to us, and will soon include access to our My LORs feature, which will be a brand new offering to collect and store and transmit letters of recommendations to the application services. That will be so much better than what is out there right now. So we're excited about that. That is coming very, very soon. But the Mappd Pro right now, again, the 90 days will give access to us through chat. And then once those 90 days are up, you can keep Mappd for free and track your grades and MCAT and start working on your applications and all that fun stuff. All right, what's next? You're muted again. It's like the phrase of 2020, 2021, and near the end of 2022.
You'd think by now I'd know.
Just don't mute yourself.
I mute myself so that I'm less likely to interrupt others.
Got it.
Yeah, let's talk into some specifics of timeline, right? I think we've appropriately gotten their attention about, look, if you try to rush it, it won't go well for you. Yep. Hey, audience, when do you think you should start working on your application? What do you guys think, students? Now, tomorrow, attention. Yesterday, ASAP, yesterday, I love it. Tonight,
I like the tomorrow.
10 years ago.
Yes. when you
Yeah,
start your
I don't think you
classes.
guys are on the right track. I don't think that there's a flat answer, but typically Tirth just said 18 months prior. 18 months prior to starting med school sounds about right to me. Most med schools start in July or August, and I think you should be starting around January the year before. So again, the cycle is the 24 cycle because you're entering med school in 23. Applications open in May, but almost all schools have at least rolling applications, even if they try to technically say they don't have rolling admissions. So earlier applicants tend to have better chances of getting interviews. So you want at least 4 or 5 months before applications open, you're already working. So, some of you are in school and you have finals in the next few days. If you're showing up to this, that's a great start, but be starting in earnest, whether it's with Application Academy or on your own by January. That's the recommended timeline.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
And
is
then,
it.
Brittany, you've advised lots of students. Where do they start? What happens in January?
So ideally, now, right, end of December, sort of the winter break, the first thing you want to start is by looking at your activities and what you've done. Start thinking, okay, what am I going to potentially want to include in my application, just to get an idea and get that percolating. But most of your attention is really going to go towards your personal statement. December, January is a great time to start working on that, because hopefully if you're in school, semester is over, you have a month break, maybe if you're not taking any winter sessions, to really start brainstorming ideas. And that's why I brought up the activities first, because I want you to start thinking about what you've done. What are the things that have really put you on this path to medicine? How do you know that this is what you want to do? The whole goal of your personal statement is to answer why medicine. So you need to spend some time reflecting on that. What have I done? What got me interested in this in the first place? What have I done to reinforce this idea? And really start outlining that, creating maps or however way you think to help you kind of narrow down your seed, which Dr. Gray will probably just bring up in a few. What was that thing that first got you interested in medicine? And then what were the events that followed that really helped solidify that for you? So spend time on your personal statement. Now is a great time to start thinking about that.
Yeah, we'll talk more personal statement next week when we do personal statement review. That should be fun. If Rachel, I don't know, I forget what the slides have, or if we're ready to start bringing people on and start diving in. I know Courtney.
If we want, we can do. Oh, go ahead, Courtney.
Sorry. So one thing to kind of note for those who may be unfamiliar, there are a few, I guess, discrepancies or just little differences between the applications if you're filling out ones between the AMCAS, ACOMAS, and the TMD SAS. They're not substantial, but they are different. So, for example, with the experience section in ACOMAS for DO schools outside of Texas, you have kind of almost an unlimited number of entries of experience that you can calculate. So if you've done it, include it, and you document all of that, which means that anything you've done, you need the supervisor, the contact information, the dates, the hours, a brief description. It's not just picking your top 3 most meaningful, like it would be, you're not having to condense it that far. So just keep that in perspective, that those little nuances can add time and you have to account for those. So just be aware of specific questions or differences that you want to, or are coming up just in your tracking.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. All right. Let me do a quick screen share here one more time. So this is not the prettiest graph, but it is fairly informative. You can see this whole process is 1.5 years, and it's very, very front loaded. I had posted something in Facebook the other day and I was a little sloppy with my wording, so I caught a little ire. but most med schools do rolling admissions. And therefore, when I hear people say, oh, I'm going to apply this summer, my hackles go up because I'm like, by summer, do you mean May 5th, right after finals? Or do you mean August, in which case I'm already worried for you? So here is kind of, this is maybe not a complete list, but a highlights list of what I think you should be doing when. And again, your mileage may vary. If you're taking the MCAT in January, doing all the other work on your primary application feels a lot easier all winter and spring. But if you're not taking the MCAT till May, I think you still start working on your application at the same time as MCAT prep. You have to think about applying like a part-time job and schedule it into your calendar. And even if it's just an hour or two a week, you got to show up every week and do that work. So January, February, March, April, there's a whole lot to do. May is typically when you can begin to submit a primary application. It varies. AMCAS, AACOMAS, and Texas all open at different dates. And then most of them have one opening date and one open for submission date. So you have a little bit of period before you can submit. I don't think that you have to submit the day the applications allow you to, but if you're not submitted by early mid-June, I worry.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the goal, is late May, early June to submit your primary. And then you get verified, which sometimes takes 2 days. Thank you, AACOMAS in Texas. Sometimes takes 2 months. AMCAS.
Can't even say it.
Anyway, the earlier you apply, oh, thank you. I got one pity laugh emoji. Thank you, whoever did that. Then you get verified. Getting verified can take a long time, and that's a wonderful time to keep working on pre-writing your secondaries. Now I say pre-write, but actually with Texas applicants, secondaries tend to be due like hard on the heels, if not at the same time as primary, which is why I have a potentially start pre-writing secondaries way up in winter, spring. But most of you are probably applying to at least AMCAS, if not also the other two application services. So often May and June are a good time to be working on secondaries. And then late June, early July is when you'll actually start getting, again, most, not all of your secondaries. What's the right timeline to turn those around, Ryan? How, I mean, it's not a magic formula, but how long do you think someone can let a secondary sit?
They can let a secondary sit forever. That's probably not advisable. But yeah, ideally, right, there's this rule of thumb, best case scenario, 2-week kind of timeline that almost everyone talks about. Best case scenario, great, 2 weeks. If it's 3 weeks and you get it done, is it a problem? It's a problem for schools that actually give you a deadline. And so if you miss that deadline, it could be a problem. But for most schools, it's probably going to be fine. If you need an extra week to make sure you're writing great essays, proper essays, very specific essays for that school, then take that extra week and perfect it if it's not past any specific deadlines.
Yep, agreed. And Courtney, interviews. I put September 23. Honestly, sometimes interviews are offered in July for August dates, all the way up to March, sometimes even April. Why? Why can interviews last so long?
Well, it depends on the school. It depends each cycle how many applications we receive, and also kind of how many we're looking to see, kind of how many we can accommodate interviewing to fill the class, and I guess have somewhat of a workable wait list, which is just a fact. But sometimes I know in my experience and some of the discussions I've had with fellow directors and deans is that every school is maybe a little bit different on how they project that timeline. So some that do rolling admissions or even follow the traffic guidelines, they get things done quickly. They wrap in October basically for interviews, and then maybe do a handful more kind of throughout that additional time. And some will withhold sending out all of their offers until they kind of get a look at what's coming in throughout the cycle, but it varies so widely. We are allowed to kind of run our own processes, at least on the DO side, the timelines can differ. But I know MDs, there's some specific timelines, but even within that, when they disclose offers, how many interviews they do and things is at their discretion.
Okay, good. So then finally, all the way next spring, we get to the end of interview season. If it's AMCAS, there are traffic rules. You guys can Google traffic rules. It basically means by a certain date, all the offers have to be made. By another certain date, all acceptances and declines have to be made. And then, and here's where, again, sometimes people say I'm going to start med school in the fall. You're probably starting in the summer. The typical American med school starts last week of July, first week of August, but it can be anywhere from 4th of July to Labor Day. And you might be moving, right? So you might have to graduate, you might have to finish up your work, you might have to look for a house. You do definitely have to go get 1 million shots. You probably have to get a background check for your, that's required typically upon matriculation. You're gonna be busy. But then comes the really fun part, which is the white coat ceremony and actually starting school. So when we say 18-month timeline, that's what we're talking about. Jan 23 to July 24, your future is all laid out for you right here, friends. And now, Ryan, I think we can do what you're so eager to do.
Okay, I've been testing it behind the scenes, just making sure at least the name stays hidden. I should be good here. So we have several people who have volunteered their mapped accounts for us. And so let's try this. Brave souls. I will spotlight my screen here. Hold on 1 second. Spotlight. All right. So from a stat perspective, we can see right off the bat, 376 cumulative GPA, 361 science GPA. And again, this is AMCAS specifically. And let me get rid of everything but the semester GPA. So Courtney, if you were to see this, I'll click in here on more detail. If you were to see this graph, and I know it's cut off there a little bit for the ACOMAS and other stuff, but we get a class standing GPA and we see 387, 376, 394, 396, 29 credits, 35 credits, 37 credits. Great. And then they did a post-bac. And so without knowing anything, my guess is that these were non-science courses, that this was not a science major, because I hope they didn't go do a grade enhancing post-bac with that great of a GPA. And then they got a 3.0.
Yeah, that would be something that gets identified immediately because their most recent coursework is not their strongest. So yeah, we would go in, we'd look at course load, what types of courses they were taking. Maybe, it was a situation where that was science and, they had to take a couple of, maybe 3 really condensed high level science. But even then, that's reason for concern. So we would have to dig in a lot more to a lot of things to kind of see if there's evidence. Maybe they were working during that time, where they were taking these courses, and maybe the 3.0 is a B average and they were working full time and, just completing a couple really difficult classes. Then the bells go down and you feel more comfortable and confident with that. You can kind of understand that, but if there's not evidence of why that occurred, other than, maybe that was just a difficult semester, it's something that will definitely be noticed. It's not insurmountable by any means, but
yeah,
we'll look.
Yeah,
we're gonna look at it.
We're gonna look. All right, so I just want to confirm before I move forward. If I were to click on courses to look at the courses, we'll be able to see the school that was attended. And I just want to make sure
Mhm.
that we're okay without even we won't see names. So for all of you who have submitted your email address, we'll look at classes, which will include the school name. And then we're also going to look at your activity lists, which may include some very specific names. We won't go like super deep into the activity list, but just to glance at the main kind of, is it clinical, is it whatever. So for the person who I'm looking at now, just I want to get a quote unquote verbal okay if you just submit again to the hosts and panelists.
Yeah,
that I can-
someone wrote that it was okay, but I don't know if it's the person you're looking at now, if it's
Yep.
someone who's hoping to be shown later.
Oh, look, hold on.
Okay. The other thing, Ryan, you might have thought of this, but you can always temporarily change their name, just so that like it's just their initials or nothing. You know, I mean, you can't do nothing, but you can do like an asterisk or whatever. You just have to remember, so you can go back later and change it back. But that way, it never shows the name.
Okay.
And I guess as they're working on that, one thing, if you're unaware, another one of the nuances is in how science GPAs are calculated. They
Yeah.
could be, or they are different between the AMCAS and ACOMAS. So on the ACOMAS side, math classes are not included in the science GPA. Physics still is, biology, biochem, all of those things still are, but we don't include the math like MD applications.
Yeah, and I can show that here.
You're showing the screen right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Phew.
Sorry. So many things going on. All right.
Right. You'd already
Um,
deleted the name. So they saw a phone number, but they didn't know whose it was. It was only a quick second.
All right, so back here. So yeah, so we can see this AMCAS GPA. And again, this is kind of a tour of Mapped as well. And again, all of this is free for Mapped. You can see I'll add all the sciences back on. Yeah, everything is there. Weird. Oh, ACOMAS combined them all. They're like all under one. So you can kind of see a small little change there with all of them. So it's weird. AMCAS is a little bit different. And sometimes that's just how students put them in too. They don't separate them out. All right. So if we were to look at this semester here, we can click on it. You can see it's 8 credits. And we can see that this was organic chemistry, lab. So 1 and 2, lab and lecture, they took them all together. So
holy moly.
that may explain the poor grades.
And online, it looks like, which is can be
Summer of
challenging.
torture.
Yeah. So, Courtney, when you see this, is this just like student was a little overambitious, maybe in a rush, not the best decision making? What do you make of this?
You know, when you see the 3.0, this is, I guess, what you kind of hope to see that it is. I mean, there's an A in there. You anticipate there being Bs. The C in our organic chemistry 1, usually you see in organic chemistry 2, but it's not uncommon, I would say, to see a C, and it's understandable if this was all condensed down into summer sessions.
Yep.
It's not the strongest, you know, we don't like to sugarcoat here, but
Yep.
it's better than what we could have seen.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. And again, their overall GPA is still pretty strong. So not bad. All right, let's keep moving here. I want to make sure we get to a lot of students. Let's just glance at the activities again here. We see, let's see if I can.
So I would be interested to know if the back office supervisor is actually clinical.
Yeah, probably not. Right.
Probably not.
back office supervisor. Remember, folks, clinical is interacting with patients. And so just that title alone is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
So, and that looks like it was an active one. It's not anymore. Let's sort by end date here. So they're working as a medical assistant. Great. 1,800
Great.
hours, lots of
Mhm.
time. Some community service. Again, that clinical, probably not. Got a little bit of research there. Some artistic endeavors. Great. What's missing
Good.
here? I don't see any shadowing.
Yeah.
So make sure we're getting some shadowing. Oh, there's some shadowing there. Oh, but it says
Well,
0 hours.
yeah.
So
Yeah. It's
Get
nice
that
to
going.
see a balance, or I guess just
Mhm.
not just only doing clinical. It's good to have a variety of settings and interests displayed and things like that. So that was nice to see. But yeah, I would say probably not just one shadowing opportunity either. You probably sprinkled those in and rack up the hours over time if you're busy.
Yep. Rachel, can you, if it's easy for you, I know there's a bunch of people who sent their email addresses in. If you can like put them in Slack or something so I can quickly go find the next person.
Sure.
That help me a bunch.
So when I was a director, it was during the time period of COVID where we had to kind of shift all of our processes. It was a really fun year, 2 years and a half. But yes, you can. We had discussions on a national level for e-shadowing. At this point, I would caution you to not just submit e-shadowing. At this point, there are
Yes.
opportunities for in-person clinical, so you can include it, absolutely. And all directors agreed that we were willing to accept that. Just at this point, with upcoming cycles, don't rely on COVID.
Yeah.
We're understanding, but they're only understanding to a point, unfortunately, because other people are out there scribing, being a CNA, they're hustling and they're getting these opportunities and they're getting some perspective of medicine in all of its variety of settings. So yes, you can include it. Don't let that be your only one.
Don't let it be the only. Yes.
The suggestion.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So for this last student that we looked at, thumbs up, thumbs down, looking good, in between. Verinia?
I thought they looked good. I'd
Yeah.
like to see a little bit more shadowing in there, but I thought if they can get in some hours between now and May when they apply, they should be good.
Yep. And not just to get hours, but to be able to reflect and,
Right.
and make sure they're looking at why this is what they want to do.
Yep. Yes.
Good.
Very
Awesome.
important.
All right.
Especially with when you do see really high academics every year and then kind of low experience, you wonder about kind of their perspective, their driver, their ability to hold a job and work in a team environment and kind of those soft skills. So that's another reason why it's good to have that kind of experience prior to starting med school. It helps drive you and also ground you and give you some perspective there, because it's challenging when somebody's just been able to hyper focus only on academics, and you would think that would just make them really strong and great, but it's not sustainable, and it doesn't necessarily mean the other elements that are needed are present either.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Ready for the next one? Let's rock and roll. So we see right off the bat, 372, 359, AMCAS GPA, COMIS, a little bit of a dip, and science GPA, TMDSAS, coming right back up. Okay. If we look at more details, the one that I always like to go to is the class standing GPA here. 362, 361, 395, 372, overall 372. Pretty good, Verinia? Look good?
Yes.
Rocking and a
Definitely.
rolling.
Mhm.
Okay. Remember, folks, nobody's looking for perfection here.
That's right.
Okay. So from a GPA perspective, looking pretty good.
Yeah, consistent.
MCAT looks like there's an MCAT test here. We don't know if this is an official one. We can go look. This looks like an official one with a note retaking in 2023. So they understand that score's a little bit low. Not horrible, not great. Courtney, you recommend retaking a 504?
I think, well, I mean, it could potentially make you more competitive to more schools.
Yep.
What is nice to see about this composite score is that there's no real offset or deep dive in one area, because that can be troubling.
Yep.
Usually we'll see that in cars, or if somebody was a non-science major, you know, maybe the chem or the bio, there's dips, which would then be kind of indicative or be cause for concern that maybe they're not quite prepared in the sciences, or cars a little bit with the standardized test taking skills, even though that may not be the actual issue. I know that that is the mindset. So
Yep.
That's what's helpful for them to know. That's how it's going to be viewed. So it would give you more opportunities if you brought up the score. So changing your study habits, doing something differently, improving, and being ready to sit for it again, because what you don't want to happen is have a 504, which is still close to, you know, it's workable, it's above the 50 percentile, and then have that for some reason drop, because that would be really challenging then.
Yep.
And you'd be out of school for a little bit longer. And I'm going to stop talking. So.
Okay. All right. So looking at activities, we see a bunch of stuff with 0. So it looks like they still need to put a bunch of stuff in, but assuming they have some hours behind this, behavioral health technician, non-clinical job, teaching English, great, medical scribe, awesome.
And I just want to point out, I saw that they put working at a bar, I think Wando's. That's important. That's important to include in your activities. If anyone is wondering if they should put that in there, definitely.
Heck yeah.
It's part of your history.
Heck yeah.
And you probably learned a lot about patience.
Yeah.
Communication.
Patience, not patience.
Angry people.
Yeah.
Multitasking.
Having patience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Looks good. Balanced.
Again, shadowing missing on here. Oh, there's some down here. Awesome. So shadowing and e-shadowing. Medical volunteer abroad. So be careful with international shadowing. Some schools may not like that. So just be careful with that. Okay. So GPA looks good. Retaking the MCAT. Activities minus some hours look good. Student looks like they're on their way.
Looks like.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay.
Green.
Let me pull up the next one here.
Yeah, I've got a pretty good list for you going there.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep it rocking. For all the people who I'm bringing up, I am changing your name in MAP. So when you log in next time, you're like, what happened to my name? Just in case a name gets shown, but it shouldn't because the way that I have my screen shared. All right. Coming up next.
So while Ryan's pulling that up, some of you are giving us the like, here's my life story, please react kind of questions. And we're just not going to have the bandwidth to go that level of detail tonight. But if you've signed up for Mapped and you're using that free trial, that is the kind of thing that it is okay to put in the Map chat advising. Shorter specific questions tend to get faster, more thorough replies. So you don't have to write your whole life story if you filled out Mapped. We can see it. But yeah, so if I'm skipping your question tonight, that probably means you should ask in Mapped.
Yep. I'm going to show this one, although it is incomplete because there are no activities. So we're not going to be able to give a more thorough answer, but maybe just looking at this GPA, we can see 381 GPA, and a lot of students get concerned, even with a relatively good GPA. You can see that it kind of started to dip here 366, still a great GPA for a semester. And then this bigger dip here, 332. And if we click in here, again, we see biochem, organic chem 2. I don't know why they're taking those at the same time. Data analysis in psychology, they got the A. And then biochemistry and molecular biology. That's an interesting one, again, to take together. Anyway, not terrible grades, right? They're not C's and D's. Rachel, when you see something like this, that's like, okay, for the most part, it's a good GPA. The way that our graph shows it, because we scale up the bottom line here on the left to a 3.2, it's not starting at 0.
Yeah.
It kind of
Oh,
exaggerates that
It
dip.
really does. It's something that I think we should talk to the dev team about maybe having this be 0 to 4 all the time, or like at least 2 to 4 at a minimum, because one semester at a 3.3 is, I mean, it's not that bad of a downward trend, and then it spikes back up. Also, looking at this, that's green. I don't know if those are sciences or not. And in fact, let's see, the science does go
They are.
down a little, so I bet they are. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you were showing that before, but I was still answering questions in chat. But B plus A, like those aren't, I'm not super freaked out about that. And I mean, Courtney, you're here. You're our director of admissions in Sitio, in residence. But one of the things I've often said about upward trend, downward trend, is if your GPA is as high as it is, which the student has a science GPA of 3.76, a CUME of 3.81, I'm not super worried about trends. I tend to look at trends more if someone says, you know, hey, Rachel, I have a 3.1 CUME, but I got C's 20 years ago when C's got degrees for accounting, and I've had a 4.0 the last 2 years doing my post-bac. Then I start to really think about, okay, so this school might not love to see your CUME, but they'll be excited to see your recent trends.
Yeah, which is usually why we leave GPA minimums and things somewhat vague, is because we want that ability to review, you know, sometimes non-traditionals, as you said, they, you know, 10 years ago, they were not the same student that they are now, and there's evidence of that. So we want the latitude to be able to pull up those applications. In this specific circumstance, I would say, you know, I do exactly what Ryan did, is I would look at that specific semester, just because it was the one anomaly. I would see that they were taking quite a heavy course load of science, and they were able to do pretty well. So then I would just move on from that. It would be eyes on it, comfortable, moving on, even though it was a dip somewhat late in their academics. It makes sense, and getting the grades that were achieved with that course load and then having another strong semester after that, I think is good evidence of just the aptitude to carry that. Yeah.
All right, let's do a few more. We're going to be here until 9:30 or so, so we still have some time, but I want to leave some time for some Q&A so people can come on and ask questions as well.
And also, students, I hope you're watching all of these, not just waiting for your turn, right? Because this is part of how group advising goes. You're going to learn from everyone's questions. So ears open. And so what do we say to kindergartners? Eyes and ears open, lips closed.
Yeah. All right, look at this terrible dip to a 3.8. Yeah, it's 3.86 semester GPA. So obviously this student crushing their grades, not an issue.
That
If we were
MCAT,
to
that MCAT though.
yeah, if we were to look at, let me move over here, their activities. So blue is clinical experience, so they're getting some clinical experience. They're getting shadowing is black, so they're getting some shadowing here. 51, 74 tons of shadowing, all shadowing here. Again, what's going on here? We got some employment, so they're working, they're getting clinical, they're crushing stuff. We can click into the activities here and see leadership, I'll move this over here a little bit. Tri-Delt has a very fond place in my heart because I was a busboy at Tri-Delt when I was in college. I'd volunteer, MedLife SLT, Melting Pot. Oh, gotta love some good fondue.
Jeez.
So got a lot of shadowing. Looks like they did some sort of program, got a ton of shadowing going on in there. Pediatric inpatient as a CNA. Awesome. So we look at this and go, oh, great. Got some shadowing. So that's virtual. Okay. And then that MCAT we saw briefly, 523, pretty good. So, the activities, check. Stats, check. Everything's looking good. So, obviously your application is much more than just your stats. If you watch Application Renovation, you'll see last season, I picked apart a 4.0 528 student who only got one interview to medical school and didn't get in from that interview. It is more than just stats. So for this student, awesome job. And make sure that you put together a good application, good essays, all of that good stuff.
I do
yep.
want to caution, because one thing I was doing as we were going through that experience section is because academics were so strong, MCAT was so strong, I wanted to see how many hours they were claiming they were doing for experience during this time that they were doing all of this other stuff. So just know that we do look at that. So don't inflate your hours and try to just beef up your experience. Just report what you've actually done, because we do look at it. And I get different charts, even more than what we just showed you on the back end. And so I can look at what things are overlapping between your academics, your experience, your volunteering, your research, your everything that's going on at once. So please just be honest, accurate, spend the time to enter it. If you're low in one area, there's so much variety. We look at the whole picture. So please don't try to overinflate anything, because we are going to look.
And so you can see this dashboard does a good job of doing that it looks like during school, they were at 25, 30 hours a month of various things, with employment being about 20 hours per month. Leadership, a few hours a month, a little bit of shadowing, and a tiny bit of clinical. And then their last semester here is spring 21-22. So they graduated, it looks like, and then their hours shot up. So they were doing a lot more. So it looks like that all holds pretty steady there. So that's good.
Yep. It looks achievable, reasonable. They are sleeping at night. You know, they're not claiming that they're working 40 hours a week and doing school full-time, pulling those grades and doing other things. So just be accurate.
Just be accurate. I don't know, Rachel, you need to drop off here in a minute. Any parting words of wisdom for our friends?
Yeah, thank you. I was just typing in the chat too. So I'm going to run to a student session. You guys are asking great questions. Keep listening, keep learning. This is a 5-week series, so keep coming back, or at least catch the recording. We'll be posting them to YouTube. And again, if you want more, this is not a one-time deal, right? This is like a preview of Application Academy. So if you're enjoying this, but wishing you had it, say 10 times a week, where you could drop in once or twice of your choosing, hey, we do that. And then Verinia and Courtney, I'm going to ask you to help manage the chat so that Ryan can keep focusing on screen share.
Absolutely.
And Application Jumpstart friends, I'll see you next week.
Yeah. All right. Let's do one more here. Again, the idea is that you can take what we're talking about here, and even if we're not getting to your specific mapped account today, that you can take what we're showing you and put it to your, what do you call that? Apply it to your trend lines and everything. So here's a good trend line to look at to maybe go into a little bit more nuance. Again, this is less of a complete one because we don't have activities here, but from a GPA perspective, which is what a lot of students are really concerned about when they're saying, hey, am I ready to apply? It's this GPA trend. So if we were to look at that, I was going to try to zoom in, but here, I'll zoom in this way. We see 356 cumulative, 306 science. And if I'll take I keep clicking on the wrong side. I have 3 different screens that show the same thing. I keep clicking on the wrong one. I feel like I'm in like a fun house of mirrors, and I'm like keep bumping into the mirror, thinking I'm going the wrong way or right way, whatever. If we just show the science, Courtney, what story does that tell you?
It's concerning, I would say, as you got into the upper division courses, it looks like maybe you struggled a bit more. And so that's not necessarily the best thing. It's still not a horrible GPA, but it's not the trend that you would want to see. So what I would do in cases like this is I would kind of immediately jump to the MCAT and see if I was seeing the same thing kind of carry over into that. Yeah.
So it's a
Which would
practice
make
test
sense. Yeah.
with a 490, and that kind of jives with that GPA usually.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a practice test, half-length diagnostic. 490 is actually not a horrible score for a diagnostic.
Yeah.
So plenty of room to improve there. But when we look at that GPA, it's what's going on. Especially the one thing that I see with this is, especially the science GPA. There's a big difference with this non-science and the science, and there's no turnaround. Right. So for me, I'm like, okay, great. You dip down. Well, not great, but you dip down. What did you do at that moment to course correct? And that's the language I haven't used a ton lately, but I love that language of course correct, where you go, uh-oh, that semester didn't go that well. Uh-oh, that year didn't go that well. How can I turn it around? How can I course correct? And I don't see any course correction here. So Vernia, if you were to see this student on campus when you were back in an undergrad campus, what conversation would you have with the student?
Let's talk. What's going on?
Let's talk.
What was going on these semesters, and why, why didn't you do something earlier? Come in and see us. What was going on? By us, I mean advisors. Connect them with any resources. Maybe it's an academic issue, maybe it's a financial issue, and they were working a full-time job while going to school at the same time. So just really having a conversation about what's going on, and like you said, try to course correct, and try to salvage things. I might say, you know what, maybe this isn't the year for you to apply. Maybe we need to look and see, is there some GPA repair you might need to do or to mitigate that? Yeah,
exactly. All right. So this student probably has some work to do, whether a post-bac, master's program, and actually looking at something I didn't pick up on originally is, let me spotlight again just so everyone can see. I need to program my little button switchers. These classes are old, 14, 15, 15, 16. And that's when they were doing better. And then they got a little bit worse. And then it looks like potentially they're back at it. But again, only 306 for 4 credits. So 1 class, it looks like, physics 1 during a post-bac. And so that doesn't, okay, hold on one second.
Yeah, so
post-bac work doesn't show up. Hold on, it's just post-bac work doesn't show up on there usually. Let's go to science. Yeah, it's just that 4. Okay.
So another thing that I would be looking at to get a clearer picture, or I guess more context or scope, I want to know the number of credit hours they're taking in these different times. I'm going to look at their major and see if that changes. I'm going to look at if they changed institutions, like maybe they were going from a community college to a 4-year institution, or vice versa, if that had anything to do with this change, if there was a change in setting and things, and
Yep.
And load as we go throughout that time frame as well.
Awesome. All right. So that's a lot of looking at GPAs. We saw some good ones. We saw some not good ones. Remember, we're not looking for perfect stats, right? When you're applying to medical school, these admissions committees are not looking for perfect stats. Even schools that report super, super high stats aren't looking for perfect stats. Just happens to be that students think that you have to have perfect stats to apply to those schools. So they apply to those schools, and hey, shocker, they get in sometimes. And so the school just perpetuates those good stats, but they are letting in students with lower stats. So give it a shot. And perfection is boring. Definitely. Louis, thanks for that. And then remember, even like this one that we're looking at, we see a little bit of a turnaround where the last 2 semesters, 12 credits and 4 credits, so 16 credits total, are at a 4.0. Keep that trend up. Get your GPA not necessarily up to a 3.8 overall, but get that trend up over the last 20, 30, 40 credits, and do that grade repair, and that will help a ton as well. So let's stop looking at Mappd again. We posted that promo code in earlier. I'll paste it one more time here. You can go register. If you already have an account, the promo code doesn't give you 90 days free of Mappd Pro. Maybe we can figure something out to help out other people who want to be a part of Jumpstart and do that. But let's bring on some people to ask some questions. How does that sound? So we have Liz here. Hello, Liz, you have a question? Unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to go back. I don't know if this is like on topic or not, but it's not on topic, definitely not. Casper, we mentioned it like a while ago. I see back and forth about like, oh, you shouldn't really have to study for it, and like, oh, you should really study for it. And I don't know what really studying for it means, but how do you recommend preparing for Casper? Or how many hours do you recommend preparing for it, if any at all?
I'll put in the link. I'll put a link in premedyears.com/303. Go listen to that podcast episode. That's with the co-creator of Casper talking all about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a podcast episode for everything.
Mhm.
It makes it easy. I was just texting with the co-creator of Casper today. It's good to have friends in high places.
I wish they still hosted that summit in Toronto. That was so fun.
I think it's coming back.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Haley, hello. Unmute. I'll ask you to unmute. Going once, going twice. Sold. Angel. Hello.
Hi. So when we were looking at it was one of the earlier Mappd profiles.
Okay.
It said back office supervisor. Was that specific to the medical assistant job they had, or
We don't
was
know.
it? Oh, okay.
That was all we saw. Same that you saw was just back office supervisor. So
Yeah.
it could have
So-
been the same clinic and just kind of 2 different roles, where they're a medical assistant, which is clinical, and back office supervisor, probably not clinical.
Right.
Okay. So
you're
if you're
at a
work-
desk- Go ahead.
Oh, my question was because I'm a medical assistant, and the way or at least our job descriptions go, front office is more like front desk type, where you're doing phones, checking in and out patients, and back office is actually where you're rooming all the patients, taking vitals, patient history. So
Oh,
we're-
yeah, that's not normal language. I would say as a physician, I would never relate someone saying back office to checking someone in.
Or doing vitals. I would have,
doing vitals. That's
Yeah.
what I mean by check in as a
Yeah.
medical assistant versus a front desk person.
yeah, that's yeah, interestingly, that's typically how it's like listed even on like job applications for a medical assistant. If they say like medical assistant back office, they're saying like you're responsible for rooming the patient's vitals, history, other things like that. And then front office is just front desk stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
So would you
that's,
suggest you label it differently on the applications?
I wouldn't
So-
say that you have to. We have those descriptions. So that's, we just jump to that if we're like, this doesn't seem to fit. Oh, they were actually doing that. And then you move on. So that's exactly why we have room for identifiers and descriptions of what you're doing so that we can, I guess, glean that type of information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Exactly. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so nobody with an asterisk, because the extreme is never the right answer. Nobody is going to look at the title and make a determination. They're going to look at the title and go, I don't think I know what that is, right? They'll look at EMT, CNA, phlebotomist and go, I know what that is. But they'll look at this other thing and go, what is that? That looks weird. And then go straight to the description. So one of the things that I generally recommend is making sure when you're listing something as clinical, even if you have non-clinical parts of your job, which is completely normal, don't focus on those non-clinical parts of your job in your description. So something that happens a bunch. All right. Michelle, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was wondering, in terms of like clinical experience and like research, like I know you could do clinical research to get kind of like 2 birds in 1 stone, like if you're interested in that. But
Yep.
like if I have bench research and then like different types of clinical experience, like medical assistant, like how important is it to have clinical research?
Brainia, you want to take a stab at that?
Patient care experience will always trump any kind of research and clinical research experience. So that is the priority. If you have research experience along with that, or if through clinical research you're able to get patient care experience, that's also beneficial. I wouldn't stress it if you don't have it. If you're interested in it and you want to pursue it, sure. But really, your goal is to work with people and patients and care for human beings. That's where you want to kind of focus your energy on.
Yep. Yes. All right.
Great question.
Annie, hello.
Hello. I think I might have put the question, I guess, in the wrong Q&A. I was kind of curious if one's interest is like attending marches like the Black Lives Matter March or like Pride Fest and women's rights marches every year. Like, would this be an appropriate like activity to put into the activity descriptions? Like, it's not necessarily the same as, I just wasn't sure like how folks would, I guess, react to that if they view it as if we're like imposing
A
politics.
troublemaker.
It's just something we enjoy. And I just don't know how to, whether or not to
Yeah.
include it or not, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if enjoy is the right word for that. Like,
Right.
advocating for human
It's
rights is
advocacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
So
Mhm.
this question comes up all the time, whether it's marching for Black Lives Matter, whether it's marching for women's reproductive rights, whether it's marching for whatever we're marching for that weekend. At the end of the day, our stance, I think, is pretty solidified that you have to be yourself, and show who you are in your application. Don't hide who you are. And yes, you may get someone who reads your application at a liberal school, and that reviewer reviewing your application at that point in time doesn't want to see what you wrote about, and they may have some bias against that. And Courtney, I know you can talk to this. like anti-bias training is huge at every step of the process. And yet we are humans and we are fallible and we have bias. And so you can never be sure how what you're writing about is going to be received. The only thing that you can do is be yourself.
Yeah, 100%. You can't remove all of the bias, even though we do train heavily for that. And but if it's important to you, I think it's more about how you shed light on that activity. What drives you to want to do it? Why are you passionate about it? How can you do it in a way that's not ringing alarm sirens in my head about professionalism or you not being teachable or wanting to go along if you don't like a test date or something like that? Because I think that's the conversation, at least that I've, heard being kind of focused on or concerned about is just they want you to advocate, that is a great thing. And a lot of the times that goes along with being a physician and you're in a position of leadership. So that's not a bad aspect. And I've matriculated people who have very strong voices, and that's wonderful. But just giving evidence and kind of your why to doing it, and at least acknowledging or providing evidence to where they'll have some context about your awareness and professionalism so that they're not concerned about that.
Okay, thank you so much. That really helps.
Yeah.
How to kind of like formulate this story description as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just be thoughtful about how you word it.
Okay.
Yeah, I often talk about, I give the example of abortion, and this example predates Roe v. Wade being overturned, but I give the example all the time of talking to students during mock interviews, and I'll say, like, what do you think about abortion? And I've heard the spectrum, and I respect the spectrum as long as the rationale behind their answer is appropriate. But if someone were to sit there and say, I think that all people who have abortions should go to hell and whatever, and they're terrible people and blah, 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 like, then I'm like, oh, that's very strong, right? And so I don't know if that's appropriate. How are you going to judge patients who think differently from you? And that's where the issue comes from, right? But if you talk about your upbringing, your religion, your morals, your values, whatever, and you can still respect that people think differently than you and me and everyone else. And that's the big difference there. Ethan, hello there. Great name, my son's name.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, kind of a unique situation here, so I'll make it quick. So I'm a sophomore at university. I'm graduating next year. One school I'm looking at is LACOM, and they have an option to submit an academic index score in lieu of an MCAT.
Yep.
Would it be appropriate to apply this coming cycle only to this school so I don't have to take a gap year after graduation?
Courtney, you want to take that? Do you have any insight into their special, for
Yeah.
people who don't know, they have this, I forget the exact name, academic index score, AIS, I think it is.
Yeah.
Where they look at your SAT, ACT, potentially your college GPA, do whatever sort of whiz bang math in lieu of an MCAT score.
Yeah. And I would think that they're one of the very few that kind of do this. It is very interesting. Yeah. And it's been in place just for a long time. I would say, regardless, applying to only one place is always risky. Especially technically, yes, you could. If you have, I believe it's like 75% of the coursework completed, done, then you qualify to apply to these things. And if you feel like with that index, you're putting a strong foot forward and you have all of the other components of your application and they can see evidence of your preparedness, then it's, people do it, but there is risk associated with that. So even during the application process, you can submit something, prepare it, hope that you don't have to do a gap year, but you're kind of forced into a gap year anyways because you're in an application cycle. So just don't stop everything that you're doing and kind of be stagnant until you know yes or no on this school. Continue actively working. Not only is this going to help you if you do matriculate into that school, but if for some reason it doesn't work out, you don't have this kind of year where you just kind of sat and waited for an answer and now you are out of school, you graduated early, your coursework is a bit older, you don't have the experience, and you're a reapplicant. So that would be my suggestion.
Awesome.
LECOM is a great school. I love
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you
I love
so
the
much.
people at LECOM.
Yeah, and LECOM, not LACOM.
Yeah, LECOM, Lake Erie, LECOM.
Lake Erie, LECOM. Shani asks a quick question, Verinia. Does shadowing have to be with a physician?
I was literally just responding in the chat.
Nice. Yeah, doing some ride-alongs in an ambulance. Can they include that?
Yeah, so I'll just read what I was writing. Shadowing different healthcare professionals is fine. You can. And you should also shadow a physician, right? Because that is eventually what you hope to become. But yes, that's totally fine. You can include that in your application as well, but just make sure you're also including physician shadowing as well.
Yeah. Perfecto. Hello, Isabella.
Hello. I have a question about the preparation. You know, you guys were sharing the kind of like the schedule of how it should be the whole year and all the planning stuff. But I've seen that from kind of like the first period of next year, there's so many things to do according to the list, you know, taking the MCAT, starting the application, personal statement and everything. Which means also that is everything besides schoolwork. And besides, I'm working part-time. So that would be besides that and some other, you know, extracurricular activities that I've been doing here at school. So would you recommend to be like, so I'm just trying to figure out how to plan. Will you recommend to take the MCAT at the maybe like the beginning of the summer so I can have the scores ready? Or how should be the best preparation for the exam in regards to planning the time?
Yeah, so our general recommendation is applications open in May every year. Some allow you to submit right away, some you have to wait a little bit. So if you were to want your score back by the time you submit your application, let's say June 1st, then you're going to have to take the MCAT by May 1st or end of April. And so if you can take the MCAT before that time, anytime before then, it's great. And yes, you have to balance what classes you're taking. Are you going to have biochem in time for the MCATs? Those types of questions. So ideally, that's when you take the MCAT. The later you wait to take the MCAT, the longer it will be until your application is complete in the eyes of the medical school. And depending on the medical school's processes, they may sit on your application until that MCAT score is received. So that's the only and it's a big thing to think about in terms of delaying your application later and later and later during the cycle.
Well,
I see. Yes.
And what you described is a lot of the reason why we're seeing more and more, you know, gap years is exactly what you described. You're packing so much into your final semester before graduation, and you need strong performance across the board. It's generally the hardest coursework. It's going to be your most recent coursework. You need some of that material potentially for the MCAT, and you still then have to, you know, make sure you're maintaining a job or getting experience, and then prepping all of these other things. You're exactly correct. It's a tremendous amount of stuff to be doing, which is why, you know, we suggest spacing it over time. But even if you do that, you're absolutely right. It's a ton of stuff to fit in to your last semester. So if you want to do that path, it's absolutely achievable, but that is why so many people will take a gap year just to give themselves a little breathing room, because you're going to graduate, you're going to have to prep for the MCAT, take it, and then you're you're in January before you know it, and getting ready to submit an application.
Yeah. We'll answer a few more questions here. I just wanted to share Application Academy real quick. I posted some links where you can save a little bit of money as well. Applicationacademy.com. It's 12 months access. We cover personal statements, interview prep, activity description essays, secondary essays, general Q&A. We're looking at adding MCAT prep, but don't hold me to that. We're waiting to find out who can do that. You'll be with a group like we are tonight. Usually the live classes have 20 to 30 people in them, even though we have more people during Application Academy. There'll be recorded modules that you can go and watch to learn from, and then you come to the office hours and learn how to integrate and submit essays for review and do mock interview prep. I know Courtney, when she first saw how much value we provide in Application Academy, she's like, "Oh my gosh, that is amazing."
It's wild. I had no idea that, I mean, like going through, reading the personal statement, breaking down the secondaries and stuff like that, and just the sharing of information between the peers and with, it's cool. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And we added even more this year. 12 months access. This is a proposed schedule, not yet finalized. So 2 sessions a day during the week. And then we're going to have TA office hours on top of this. And then a random yoga session from Rachel, who loves teaching yoga. So it'll be amazing. Everything's recorded. So if you can't make it live, you can still catch up, and it's all there for you. So check it out. Those promo links expire on January 9th, which is when class starts, Application Academy starts. All right, so let's get Catherine in here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yep.
Hi. So my question is for Courtney. She mentioned earlier how when you're applying to DO schools with that specific application, how the activities list, you can add as much as you want. Like you just, so I was wondering, as a person who was not a science major and who did a lot of activities outside of my classes, is there too many activities where you're kind of like watering down the substance of your application?
That's a fair question. I think you do need to be thoughtful of it. We're wanting to look at anything college years and beyond. You do have the latitude to kind of group things together where you can just say various volunteer efforts or events and just kind of list out that way. So it's not, 15 different 4-hour listings. I wouldn't do that too many times, but I wouldn't shy away from giving them any and all information, because if you can show evidence that you were able to be involved in as many things as you did, and that you are a community member, you are active in your school, you're able to balance a lot of things at once, and that gives us insight into you, I would say it's really valuable to see that, especially over time. So it wouldn't water it down. I think it would show breadth and depth and consistency over time. So I would see it kind of in the opposite way. So I wouldn't shy away. If you feel like it's just getting like too many, like I said, in limited circumstances, you can group, but I think the more you show, because we ask you, what have you done, we'll give you credit for what you've done and give them a much better perspective.
Thank you.
Yep. Jade, hello.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. So I've been listening and consuming your content for years now, but I still don't know the answer to this question. So I actually volunteer for an organization where we work with first responders and we get called out to scenes where somebody has died. and we provide emotional and what's called practical support to the survivors and the family members. Sometimes it's in a hospital, sometimes it's on the highway, it's in a home, like we kind of respond to any situation. I don't know whether this is clinical or
Is it
not.
clinical?
I've leaned towards like saying not because
Okay.
I think I remember at one point where it's like, if it's not clinical, if there's a question about it, just say no. And I do have enough clinical experience. Like I've done MHT work and phlebotomy, and I'm a clinical research coordinator. So I don't need the clinical hours, but I just wanted to figure out what the best label is for that.
Yeah, Verinia, you're our resident. Is it clinical? Answer.
I know it's your guys' favorite question.
I want that on my business card.
Done.
It doesn't sound like to me that it's clinical. However, it is very much, a benefit, an opportunity to help someone else. I saw your face, Ryan, sort of questioning it. I don't see it that way. To me, it's more therapeutic support. I don't want to boil it down to something so simple. But when I think of clinical, I think more like, and as I'm saying this, I'm starting to question it myself, honestly, because I'm thinking.
Don't let my facial expression.
No, because I'm thinking crisis text counseling, right? We consider that clinical. So let me take a step back here.
This is why I'm asking.
Yeah. You know what? There really aren't, I don't want to say there's no rules around your activities, right? The best you can do is present it for what it is. You can say it's clinical and let the medical schools decide if that's sufficient for them. That's how I would approach it. Yeah.
Courtney.
And I kind of leaned with you, Verinia, where it's definitely a gray area, and it's a wonderful experience, and I think that they're going to really value it no matter where you put it. But counseling, like going and providing a service that maybe, they're not a patient that checked in somewhere, they're not coming for a doctor's appointment, you're providing counseling, but you're not providing
like medical care.
It's tough.
It's a tough one. That is
a tough one.
Right. And are you licensed in some way as a counselor, Jade? Obviously not as a true therapist, unless you are a therapist.
No,
but
I mean, it's kind of weird because my minor, actually, I took classes in counseling, so I know how like to do motivational interviewing. But for this program, you do it like 2 weeks of really condensed training, and you get like a certificate in what they call emotional first aid. And so it's done through the like the organization itself. It's like, and the founder's a doctor, he's a psychiatrist, and so like he explains how it's useful as a physician. So I do get like that, but it's not like a phlebotomy certificate. It's just kind of a local.
Well, it is. It's exactly what it is.
It's emotional first aid. Yeah.
It says first aid clinical.
Done.
Yeah. Done.
I never thought of it that way.
Clinical. Yep.
Emotional first aid. Yeah.
So I jumped on right away. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I mean, to me, I've been in that situation enough where family members need support, and in the hospital, I've seen it firsthand. Like, that's clinical experience. It's definitely non-traditional clinical experience, but I think it's phenomenal clinical experience. And the fact that you have a certificate that says emotional first aid, I would put that as the title of like emotional first aid responder or something like that. That makes it really call out what it is, and then talk about it. Tell a story of maybe, if you have the space or whatever, of a memorable encounter. But that sounds awesome.
You can even put certified.
Yeah.
Certifiable. I love being certifiable.
Certified first aid emotional support.
All right, friends. We are at 9:30 Eastern. Verinia has bed. Courtney and I are earlier hours, so I have to go put the kids to bed. I hope this was helpful for you. as we began our 5-week session here, this first session, really helping you understand what you, Courtney, as a former director of admissions, and then myself, Verini, and Rachel as kind of trying to hack our way through this, really giving feedback to students on what you should be looking at when determining, should I apply? Should I wait? Do I need more coursework? Do I need more activities? All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll send you out an email so that you can potentially put an asterisk on this. We haven't finalized how we're going to do this, but we may send you an email to submit some stuff that we'll review as a group, or we may just bring you on and you'll share your screen and we'll review from there. But next week, we're going to be doing personal statements and activity descriptions. In Application Academy, we're going to be reviewing personal statements once or twice a week during office hours. We're just going to do it once during our application jumpstart. So again, I post those links. We'll send out more links and more information about Application Academy. And we hope to see you all next week for our next session of Application Jumpstart. Goodbye, everyone.